Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dualistic Unity movie review series. I forgot that I usually do an intro for these, but I'm excited to get into the Lego movie because this is symbolic as fuck. Like deeply, deeply, deeply symbolic. So yeah, I'm just excited to talk about it.
I can tell. It's an absolutely stunning movie. It's so funny. I didn't see this movie coming. I kind of downplayed it when it came out. I'm like, oh yeah, the Lego movie, like that'll be cute. And I want to be the first to say that I fucking love Lego. When I was a kid, I was all about the Lego, and so I really did think this movie would just be kind of entertaining, but it goes so much deeper. So before I go any further, if you haven't watched the movie, go and check it out. The Lego Movie. It came out in 2014, stars Chris Pratt, Will Ferrell, Elizabeth Banks, Morgan Freeman, Will Arnett, and a host of other people, including Jonah Hill. I'm not even going to get into the list. There are so many cameos in this movie, but the reason I love it is because it tackles two different levels of existence that happens whenever we are playing with anything in this way. And I know, as somebody who used to play with Lego, that I played two roles, actually more roles. I would play all of the characters within the world I was creating and the force that was creating it. You were not only the character, but the narrator. And this movie attempts to bridge the gap to show that the perceptions of all of these characters are just as valid to them, while they are in fact part of a larger narrative that is being created by another part of a larger narrative, which is part of another larger narrative. And so I love everything about the character Emmett, the man upstairs, the entire journey that it takes to get there. But I would like to start with Emmett because the beginning of this movie really caught me when I watched it. And specifically, it was the fact that there were instructions on how to fit in, have everybody like you, and always be happy. And that's what Emmett woke up to. Every day, he would read these instructions and he would do them to the best of his ability. And regardless of that, he was not accepted by people. He did not feel connected. He did not feel alive. He did not feel that he could express himself or even know what to express. Somebody said it towards the end of the movie that he fit in so well that nobody saw him. And so we'll start with that and I'll pass it to Andrew.
Oh yeah, that one hit deep for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I talked about it before, but that was pretty much like my high school experience. Fit in so well that you go unnoticed because that was my fear, was having people have an opinion, and I think that's where people get caught. The fear of people having an opinion of you, which is on them. It's on their based on their perception, which I've now come to realize. But back then it was very much like don't be noticed. Don't allow anyone to have an opinion of you. Just stay under the radar because then you will avoid anyone having a negative opinion of you, anyone not liking you. And it doesn't mean that people are necessarily going to like you. They kind of like you by default by not disliking you, but you're not expressing yourself. You're not sharing all of those things because he wasn't expressing himself. He was very much following the rules. And as ridiculous as the beginning of this movie is, he's getting up, he's following, doing all the things, like following the rules on how to do everything. Like that's kind of how our society functions in a massive way. Like it's pretty much exactly how our society functions. There's a right way to live, a right thing to do, the societal blueprint that we grow up believing to be the way that you get to happiness. And that's where, when people are in their 20s, they kind of come out of the beginning of that system and have an opportunity to question things or recognize that, oh, that maybe isn't the exact way. And for those who don't dig into that, that's where the midlife crisis comes around, is because they don't necessarily dig into those questions. They just keep at it till they're in their 40s, 50s. They're like, wait, this was supposed to make me happy. This was supposed to fulfill that void inside of me, and it didn't. So now I got to go go crazy and do some shit to try and fill that void. And it's like a last minute sort of thing, like, oh fuck, I don't know how much longer I got on Earth. I don't know how much longer I got in this life. And so I gotta go, buy a sports car, or fucking do whatever people do in their during their midlife crisis. But yeah, the beginning of the movie was very much just representative of our society, and Emmett was very much representative of people who try and live the right way and just try to fit in. Like even just the desire to fit in, or to not be seen as different, or outside of the box, he is the perfect representation of that. The point that he goes entirely unnoticed, completely unnoticed, because there's nothing about him, about his uniqueness, that he expresses. And to finish this off, I just have a question with the construction. I don't know if you caught this, and I wasn't sure if this was actually what was happening, but as they were building the buildings were also getting destroyed at the same time. Like, so is it just this spinning cycle of not actually doing anything, feeling like they're doing something, so that I forget the company, Lord Business, like overarching company name, but it's just basically to keep people occupied and distracted. Because I saw that and I was like, I'm pretty sure they're just destroying them as they're creating them, but I'm not positive. So I was curious about that, because that's obviously super symbolic as well.
Actually, it's really interesting. If you go back and you watch that scene, somebody says just before they start blowing shit up, let's get rid of all this weird shit. They don't say that specifically, but let's get rid of all this weird stuff and replace it with the plans of Lord Business, which are all controlled and stagnant and very much the idea of perfection, which is the entire point. I think it's really funny. I think my favorite part of the fitting in and having everybody like you is always cheer for the local sports team. Go sports team. And I love that because I find sports fucking ridiculous. And that whole thing about cheering for the local team is just when it's like, I'm going to move to a new state or city. And all of a sudden now I'm a fan of this team. It's like, that whole thing is just ridiculous. And it's a good way to make friends, though, and be sociable and fit into the group. So I found that really funny. The thing that I found in that scene to be kind of heartbreaking and really important, and it's probably glossed over by most people, is the rule of always say something nice back to somebody who compliments you. He's like, oh, you look nice today. And everybody's like, so do you. And nobody means it. It's just observing politeness rather than actually having any empathy or connection. Because I mean, think about how many times Emmett would talk to people, say nice things to them, compliment them, ask them how they're doing, and they didn't even remember him. And it's because while he was doing the right things, there was no actual connection. There was no actual authenticity, right? Because he's just doing the right things. And that's kind of what was sad when Emmett is finally kidnapped or arrested by a bad cop. And they showed the clip of everybody Emmett talks to regularly, not remembering him at all. And then when they do finally remember him, they're like, he doesn't really have anything that's his. You see, like, this identifies me and this identifies me. I like big sausages and I like chicken wings, and Henry's funny and all this stuff. But Emmett's not anything. And that's viewed as a negative, when in fact, it's just that Emmett has never tried to express his potential. And he has a lot of potential specifically because he hasn't identified with any one thing as yet, which is why I enjoyed the scene where they get to look inside Emmett's mind. But before we go any further, I think it's important that we address Lord Business, played by Will Ferrell, of course. There's a lot in this, specifically in how business works, like the Octan Corporation, for example, when Emmett is watching TV and they're talking about how the Octan Corporation is basically in charge of, what is it, surveillance, voting machines, all history books, right? President Business is speaking. He's like, following the instructions or else we'll put you to sleep. And then they go on to the Where's My Pants commercial. And Emmett's like, hold on, what was I thinking about? And so I thought that was just beautiful because it really does show how business does work. In this case, putting it all underneath one shadowy figure, of course, but that really is how business operates.
Oh yeah, that whole dynamic was very symbolic of especially a country like the US. You know, it's maybe not one, but it's not many. It's a couple. And if you start looking into brands and whatnot, you'll see that most of them bubble up to a singular corporation. And so it's interesting how, you know, obviously they take that to the extreme where it's one that kind of is overarching everything. And it's both doing all these things kind of in the background and then also doing all these things in the foreground. And it's just representative of keeping people distracted, like doing everything they can, saying and even doing, you know, the theme song, everything is awesome. So no one even questions if it isn't. No one even wonders if maybe there's something else. And everyone's doing it. So of course the groupthink comes in, everyone wants to fit in, and they know that. It's like they know that everyone wants to fit in. And so they just put everything into that understanding and where people's fear comes in, like the fear of being alone, the fear of standing out. Because if you're standing out, you're standing alone. And that's the whole thing. Like you're standing on your own, being yourself, expressing yourself, you know, being the special that eventually, you know, they recognize that everyone is. And throughout the entire beginning of the movie, it's very much everyone doing the same thing. Like the scene where they zoom out of the town and everything is just flowing, everyone's in line, everything's in perfect order. Everything is in perfect order, perfectly controlled, perfectly certain at all times. No questions, no imagination, no consideration, no questioning. And that's really what Emmett is locked into. Like he doesn't question anything. And so Lord Business very much understands that. He understands where people's insecurities lie. And Emmett is kind of the perfect expression of that insecurity at play, like the perfect playing piece that goes unquestioned to the point that he doesn't even have anything unique about him. As Ray said before, like nothing to stand out whatsoever. He plays that role so perfectly that no one even notices that he's there. And so, yeah, Lord Business. It's funny too. And there's some later scenes where it's just it shows his insecurity and where that insecurity comes from. And I find that when I interact with people who are very caught in, you know, the right way to live, the correct way, they have their belief system, super religious, super just like, you know, societal blueprint to a T. I find when you get them alone in a conversation, like they can oftentimes be very insecure and just kind of like agree with what you're saying because they don't want to push back on anything. And so there was one scene just expressing Lord Business's insecurity when Bruce Wayne comes to the conference room. And this is later in the movie, but he's like, wait, so you have a tool to control the universe and you don't even have a sound system? And he's like, oh, well, we could probably do that. And just you see how insecure he is because someone recognizes it. Bruce Wayne with a bunch of money, Lord Business probably kind of looks up to him in a sense. And he's like, wait, you don't have this? And immediately you can feel the insecurity arise in Lord Business. And so for anyone like that, it stems from that insecurity. And they just do all of these things on top of it, have all this money, have all this control, have all this certainty as a suppression of that insecurity, as a means of avoiding it. And so I thought that was very interesting to see what's underneath the surface of Lord Business. But yeah, for almost anyone lost in that mentality, that's oftentimes where it stems from.
Yeah, absolutely. And he actually says that all I'm asking for is total perfection. Like, is that so hard to achieve? You know, he wants to make things permanently the way that he prefers them. It's absolutely an obsession with control and order and fear, ultimately, of things that he doesn't understand. They even say that he was confused by all the chaos, and that's why he separated all the worlds and made sure that people had instructions they had to follow. Right. But you'll notice that they have specific strategies that they use, like making sure Where's My Pants is still running. He checks in to make sure the music is continuing to repeat the same song. He asks, how are coffee sales doing? These are all things that he knows drive the machine. And so those are his focuses, as well as the relics that he keeps, which are really just a way of keeping people in fear. So I thought that was really well done as well. I want to mention very quickly the moment that Emmett happens upon the piece of resistance, or the cap to the Craggle. My favorite line in this movie is at that moment when he falls all the way down and he looks up and he sees this thing. He's having an experience that he's never had before. It is beyond anything that he'd ever possibly described. Nobody has ever brought up anything like this to him. And his first line is, "I don't have my instructions." And that's when his life changes. When he does something outside the instructions, when he makes a choice that he doesn't understand, and his entire story changes after that. And then what's interesting is Emmett, who's always just wanted to fit in, is all of a sudden looked at in a way that makes him special, not part of the group, but actually important all on his own. And that's an experience he's never had or even thought he could have. And so Wildstyle is suddenly looking at him in this way that he wants to live up to. And it's when they're leaving the city after the great chase scene that he's like, "Oh, I can't do this. We're leaving the city limits. We're breaking the rules. This isn't in the instructions." And she's like, "Hold up. What's your favorite restaurant? Any chain restaurant. What's your favorite music? Everything is awesome. Right? And what's your favorite TV show? Where's My Pants?" And she's like, "Oh no." And she recognizes the programming. She recognizes the conditioning, and she convinces herself that it can't be broken, that this couldn't possibly be, quote unquote, the special. And what I love about this is that it speaks volumes about the spiritual community without even meaning to, I think, just because you don't have to know any of the spiritual shit. You don't have to know any of the concepts or anything else. You can be totally, totally lost in your ego and the conditioning of the system around you and still have all of that potential within you. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to be responsible for that change. And that really is Emmett's whole journey. Because you'll notice throughout the entirety of the movie up until the very end, he is basically asking everybody else to think for him. He actually says at one point, "Okay, what do I do and exactly how do I do it?" And it's because he doesn't want to take that risk in doing something because it may devalue him. But that's what a master builder does. A master builder uses whatever is in front of them and doesn't think about what the limitations are. They just work with what they have. And so there's a degree of faith. And so I love Emmett's journey to becoming a master builder.
Yeah, it is definitely something. And even now, as we're talking through it, I'm resonating more and more with his story and whatnot, because that the recognition of that it's inside of him, despite doing, having the favorite restaurant, every chain, song, everything is awesome, and all that stuff. Like, it was still within him because it's within everyone. Like, everyone at their core is the universal intelligence. Like, it's all there, and we just have so much shit on top of it, so much shit weighing us down that hinders our ability to express that intelligence, which is just do things for yourself, express things as freely as you're able to when you let go of the instruction manual, when you let go of what the rules are, when you let go of the right thing to do. Because even with that, like in the movie, and we see in society very much so, like that instruction manual, like that was written by someone else made that. And Lord Business made that in the movie, understanding how to control people and how to take advantage of people and whatnot. So we're following these rules and these made up sort of expectations that were made by someone. They're not inherent to reality. And I think that's something, because I remember when I sort of realized that a couple of years ago, like, these rules aren't inherent to society. The societal blueprint, the way that we exist, the way that we function, and the way that our current society runs is not the way it has to be. It's not the way that it always has been. It's actually like super fucking recent, even the way that things are. And so, but we follow them because everyone else is doing it, because we want to fit in. And even the just the side point, I didn't even realize what the whole coffee thing, like why they made such a point of that. And I was, as you were talking, I was like, oh fuck, we really have made, coffee, caffeine into this sort of like craft thing, and people identify with their coffee in their coffee shop, and it's like that keeps the machine running. Like people utilize their caffeine to do things they don't want to do. When you're running off enthusiasm, you don't need as many things like caffeine. When you're doing something you fucking hate and really don't want to do, but feel like you have to because that's the way society is running and that's the right thing to do, and that's what everyone else is doing, you need some substance outside of yourself, outside of your own energy. You need another resource because you're following another resource. You're not following yourself. So your own internal energy isn't quite enough. And, you're following a schedule even that is kind of set that everyone else follows. And it's like just the humdrum of society. And so we're not even tuning in to ourselves and the things that we want to do. And so the whole movie is kind of just like the transition from not tuning in to yourself to tuning into yourself. And that's the process of going from, a construction worker to a master builder. Like that is the process, fitting in to everyone else, following everyone else's rules, to following your own rules, doing it for you because it's where your enthusiasm lies, what you want to be doing with this reality, as opposed to what everyone else is telling you that you should be doing because you just want to fit in.
And they really did hammer on that right down to the point of the prophecy itself, right? Because Emmett and everybody else is like, the special is the most interesting and entertaining and talented person ever. And it was all made up. And it wasn't until Emmett recognized that he started making his own choices. Up until then, he was still trying to be the special. And while it became clear that he could do that just through being himself, that's one of my favorite parts in the movie, is when they recognize that Emmett's apparently stupid idea serves a fucking fantastic role in everything, in that Lord Business didn't even look at it because it didn't make any sense to that mentality. Whereas Emmett's mentality is just like, but look, it brings us together. He's not necessarily thinking about, whether it's profitable or whether or not it's logical or whether or not people would like it or anything like that. He's really thinking about whether or not people would come together through this thing. And so Lord Business is just like, that makes no sense. The mentality of control doesn't give it any credibility at all and just kind of looks beyond it. And that's what ended up working for them. It was Emmett's ideas that nobody else would think is a threat that allowed them to get through the system of control and get close to shutting down Lord Business. And isn't that what we're doing here? Right? People would listen to Dualistic Unity, they'd listen to this conversation, and many people do listen to some of the things that we say, whether it's here on the show or with people in our lives, and you'll hear them go, oh, that's ridiculous. And yet it's making an impact with the people who are willing to hear it. But the mentality that's not willing to hear it won't even see that impact. It'll scoff. That's nothing, that's absurd. And yet it'll still have an impact. It will still change everything, which is why I enjoyed when Wildstyle, or Lucy, decided to talk to the people themselves and was using Emmett as inspiration. Like, look, he's just like you. And he's done incredible things that nobody thought he could do, that he even didn't think he could do. You can do that too. Get out there, create. That is the only revolution we need, right? Because it's the mentality that needs order and control that is easily threatened. But a society that changes and adapts with people expressing themselves and coming from a state of fulfillment and wanting to connect with one another in that state of fulfillment, it's a whole other thing. That's a revolution of its own. I love this movie for that. And then, of course, there's the man upstairs.
Yes, the man upstairs. Before we get into that, just that last part with like understanding that you can do it too, like that, and now it's hitting me also. Just like getting into doing content. Like that was one of the initial recognitions that I had. Like my first ever piece of content, besides like a random TikTok I made before this, when I decided like I want to start posting on social media more, was just a day in the life YouTube video. You can still find it on my YouTube. Super slow pace, super monotone, but it was just like a day in the life slash apartment tour. And it was because I was following this fitness YouTube guy, and he did one, and it was just super dry, kind of not much to it. Didn't really have that typical like YouTube uppity stuff. And yet I watched the whole thing because I was interested in him and what he was doing in his life. And I was like, wait a second, that guy could do that. I can I can do that too. Like he's just a guy who got into this stuff, and like there's nothing saying that I can't. And so that was kind of like my transition into that, was that realization. And the other, in regards to the couch and the double decker couch and all of that, and just like imagination, the real quick wanted to bring up the Cloud Cuckoo Land also, because that place was like very much representative of the other end of the spectrum. Like what was it, Unikitty? When they get there, she's like, there is no certainty, there is no control, there's no consistency whatsoever. And it was just kind of like this super random place, but all the master builders were there. It was just the imagination expressed essentially. And so I found that spot to be very interesting. And then of course the bad cop comes in, and all of the micromanagers who are trying to instill that state of control and certainty are like, what even is this? What's going on here? Like they can't even comprehend that at all. And on top of that, just with Unikitty and their journey, I thought that was very, very funny how it was kind of like just toxic positivity despite expressing that sort of internal rage. And they were like, when you have those bad thoughts, just suppress them, just push them away, just forget about them until you can't even feel them. And then comes full circle at the end of the movie when they're like, yeah, basically fuck this, and just goes berserk on all of the micromanagers and allows all of that to be expressed, because there is a time and a place for that type of mentality and that experience and emotion to be expressed. And when it's able to be utilized in a way that's actually relevant to the situation, can be very powerful. So it's not just this objective like, oh, just be happy all the time, that a lot of people, and especially in the spiritual community, kind of push because it makes them comfortable, allows them to feel like they have a sense of control. Oh, just got to be positive all the time. And it's like, that's not it either. That's not it. There's a side that, when a little bit of emotion, a little bit of rage comes out, that can actually be very beneficial. So I thought Unikitty's journey was pretty funny, and then just the Cloud Cuckoo Land was very representative of kind of the other end of the spectrum. And I think that's what the kid in the movie was. That was kind of his world that he was able to create and then express through all of those characters.
Exactly. Which brings us to the man upstairs and his son, obviously. And what I loved about this was it's kind of like if you and I or anybody else were to just detach from this story enough to recognize the currents that are always happening within our dualistic experience. Because the man upstairs is, kind of the older and more jaded, fearful mentality that is looking for total control and order. And then the son sees the value of expression and connection and fluidity, and he isn't as absorbed with the idea of things needing to be a certain way. He sees the beauty in everybody just being what they are and everybody being unique that way, because he, in fact, wants to express who he is and how unique he is. And so it's so interesting because that's basically what we're dealing with within our awareness. We have the part of us that wants control and the part of us that wants to express itself, right? We have the duality of our mentality. And so that is what they represented there. And I thought it was so interesting to watch, because basically what you're watching is the interplay. And in between all of that, you find that middle ground. Like Cloud Cuckoo Land had no rules, no government, no consistency. And Batman's like, I hate this place. And because it can be a bit much, there should be some balance, right? Because it makes sure that everybody is considered. Because it's not just master builders that you need to worry about, right? Everybody else too. And that is, in fact, the Achilles heel of master builders. And they pointed that out as the movie went on, that as creative as they are, they're so individualistic, they're so independent that they have problems working together. And so Emmett came in with that genuine empathy. And empathy really was Emmett's strong point throughout the entire movie, right? Right down to the point where it was his secret weapon. What's your secret weapon? My hand. Join us. You are the most interesting person. You are the special. And I thought that was fantastic because that really was what Emmett was learning throughout all of it. It's not about believing you're the special. It's about accepting that everything that is special is within you and accessible to you. You just have to let go.
Yeah, and the power of that empathy, I think, and this is, and I'm glad you brought this up because I didn't really connect all that and like the balance between that, like Cloud Cuckoo Land, all the master builders being very, very caught up kind of in themselves to a degree, like in themselves on the end of creativity, but it's still me. And it's like expressing kind of the spectrum of ego, the side of the desire for control and the desire in Lord Business to control everything in all of reality, whereas the master builders are just very much focused on themselves and not focused on others whatsoever, but they think highly of themselves and they're not worried about controlling anyone else, but they're also just not considering anyone else. Whereas Lord Business is trying to control all of them. Whereas, you know, Emmett comes in as it's kind of that the glue in between it. Like once, like the whole time he's considerate of others to a fault. You know, he's empathetic to a fault. He wants everyone to like him and to appreciate him and not to be basically not to be disliked by anyone. And it isn't until he recognizes in himself that he actually has something to him that he's able to kind of tap into that master builder mentality while maintaining the consideration of everyone else. And it's kind of the perfect combination of those things. But it's a process because if he were to just have gone through that sort of master builder mentality from childhood or from growing up, he wouldn't have gained any degree of that empathy. Like he had to go through the extreme of almost, I'm not going to say too much empathy, but too much consideration for other people's perception, essentially to a fault, that he was able to maintain that a degree of that mentality without letting it weigh him down and kind of keep it in mind while also recognizing in himself as being the special. So it was almost like beforehand he was recognizing the special in everyone else, whether he recognized it or not. It was kind of subconscious that it was like, oh, everyone else matters a lot, but I don't. And I'm going to kind of sacrifice myself for everyone else's happiness to understanding that, oh, this is also within me, but it's still within everyone else. It didn't weigh him down to the point that he thought so highly of himself that he stopped considering others. It was like, you know, he was here considering everyone else and not him. And he got to a point where it was just enough to not allow it to hold him back anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, Emmett's journey definitely resonates a lot. I found that to be, and with a lot of people, I'm sure, who, you know, had a certain perception of themselves and eventually recognized that it wasn't actually the truth and were able to express themselves, but then not, you know, not forget where that empathy sort of comes from.
Yeah, I love that part of Emmett's journey. Just the fact that at first he just wanted to be involved. As he went on, he was actually starting to see himself not just as somebody who was involved, but somebody who was actually making decisions, somebody who was participating in a whole new different way. And so now he actually did fit in. He actually did feel like part of the team. And then he gave up his life. All of a sudden, everybody else became more important than what was once his most important drive, which was to be liked and to fit in. And he sacrificed everything. He let go of who he thought he was, or who he wanted to be, or who he needed to be. And he just gave it all up for them. And in doing so, went through to the other side, had essentially what would be called a psychedelic experience, and saw reality from another level, from on high, as it were, from a different perspective. And in seeing it from a different perspective, recognizing that Emmett, his character that meant so much to him, is actually just a very small part of something that's way bigger. All of a sudden, he comes back to his world, and there's no doubt that he's a master builder. He even says, I see everything. And that's really all it takes to be a master builder, is to get yourself out of the way so you can see what's in front of you without telling yourself you can't do it. And that's what changed for Emmett, was that he came back recognizing everything that he had ever told himself that kept his mind so blank wasn't the truth, that he could do anything he wanted with that mind, that he could do anything he wanted if he was just willing to express himself. And so, yeah, I love the fact that he hits the ground, he makes an impact, he's like, sorry, ground, and then he just continues on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That whole the symbolism in that, in sacrificing himself, almost like sacrificing what he thinks he is, like sacrificing his ego, kind of like having an ego death to a point, and then understanding that, oh, his entire perception of reality isn't reality. Like there's something else going on here. And so when he goes into the quote unquote real world with the kid and Will Ferrell and all of that, he understands that all of the situations that he'd been through were just a component of reality, but they weren't the entirety. So there wasn't so much weight anymore. It was almost just a shift enough in a perspective, which I think that, and I've talked with people before about this with psychedelics, like it's not necessarily for anything specific, but oftentimes trips and whatnot, and the trippy stuff you experience is just to shake you enough to realize that all the things you think are so certain, are so real, aren't. Like they are, but they aren't. Not in the way that the specific sort of confined way that you think, like this is all there is. This my perception of it is exactly how it is. It's just shaking you enough to realize, oh, maybe it isn't. And so he goes through that and experiences that world and kind of sees everything going on. And like, the glue, the Kaggle is actually just crazy glue. And it's to very much keep things in control, keep things certain, keep things stagnant, exactly as you think they should be. And so that that mechanism, it was very much representative of the mechanism of control. And so he was able to see it from that outside perspective, and then comes back and everything changes because he sees that it's almost like he sees that he's the entirety of it. And so his perception isn't it, and beyond that perception, it's just what is, and there isn't so much holding him back from anything anymore. Like it allows him to question not only reality but the story enough that he can see that, oh, his potential is far less limited than he ever perceived it to be. And then he comes back and there's no doubt anymore. That's all it is. It's not that he believed that he was something special. It's just without the doubt, without the thought that he wasn't. It's like he was able to express what was always there, which was being a master builder, which is within everyone when they don't have that doubt.
And what the movie didn't touch on, of course, was the fact that we are the man upstairs. We are the sun. We're also all the characters, all of it. So it's just a matter of perspective. When you wonder what the hell is happening to me, well, it depends. How do you want to look at it? From which angle? Because there's a lot. None of it's the whole picture, of course. So just express yourself. Be the master builder you are. Stop doubting yourself. It's a great movie. I really enjoyed this. This is a fantastic review. We could talk about this movie all day. I know I have for weeks after I watched it the first time, but it is definitely one of my favorite movies in the last decade.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it again. So I think I say that about every single movie that we've done on here. But yeah, there's a lot to this one. I think a lot of people, when they see it, or maybe after they listen to this, will resonate a ton with Emmett and his story, because I think there's most of our society starts out where Emmett starts out, despite being the special, which I don't know, from what I saw, is just representative of being God, being reality, being the universe itself, is recognizing that the special is what you are and whatever it is. So this has been a lot of fun to chat about, and yeah, we could keep talking about this forever. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the movie, if you were able to check it out as much as we did, and look forward to talking with everyone soon.
Take care, everyone.